Have you ever looked at someone else's life and thought, why not me? Not in a bitter way. Just honestly, they got the thing early. The career clicked into place, the right doors opened at the right time, and you are still here doing the work, waiting for something to move. And somewhere underneath all the productivity advice and the trust the process captions, there is a quieter question. You don't say out loud, what if the struggle isn't leading anywhere? What if it is just struggle? And yet, something about that doesn't sit right either, because most of us have been on the other side of this too. Have you ever gotten something you wanted, really wanted, and felt almost nothing? Just because you got it very easily, and you don't tell anyone that. Because it sounds ungrateful, because other people wanted this and didn't get it. And here you are feeling quietly empty about something that was supposed to matter. Is the wanting the point? Is the reaching, the not yet, the almost? Is that where the actual life is happening? And if it is, what does that mean for the people who seem to have everything already? Are they living more or less? There is an old Greek story. Midas was a king, not a villain, not a fool. Just a man who wanted security, who wanted to know that what he had could never be taken from him. When the god Dionysus appeared and offered him one wish, he asked for the golden touch. Everything he laid his hands on would turn to gold. Dionysus paused. Are you sure? Midas was sure. For a moment, it was everything he imagined. The walls, the furniture, the garden, all of it gleaming, permanent, untouchable. Then he tried to eat. Then his daughter ran to him. The wish that was supposed to protect everything he loved became the thing that destroyed it. Not because the wish was evil, because Midas wanted the feeling of abundance without the experience of building it. He wanted permanence without the understanding that comes from loss. He wanted to skip to the end, and the end without everything before it was just gold. Cold, beautiful, dead. Shortcuts in life don't just take out the struggle. They also take away the person the struggle was supposed to build. Every time you push through something difficult, something in you recalibrates. Your tolerance for uncertainty grows. Your trust in yourself deepens. You develop a kind of quiet confidence that doesn't come from things going well. It comes from knowing you can handle things going badly. The shortcut skips all of that. You arrive. But you arrive hollow, without the internal infrastructure that was supposed to come with a destination, and then life asks something of you. A real decision, a real loss, a real test, and you reach for that infrastructure, and it isn't there. There is a difference between a person who has lived through something and a person who has merely survived it. Survival is about making it to the other side. Living through something is about what you carry out of it, the part of you that got forged in there, that didn't exist before, that no shortcut could have produced. Most of us are so focused on getting to the other side that we forget we're being built inside the crossing. In 1988, a book was published that almost no one read. The publisher printed 900 copies. Reviews were thin, sales were close to nothing. The publisher dropped it. The author bought the rights back himself, found another publisher, and the book spread, slowly at first, then fast, then in a way that defied every conventional explanation for why books succeed. 65 million copies, 80 languages. The most translated book by a living author in history. The book is called The Alchemist, and it follows a boy named Santiago. Santiago is a shepherd boy in the south of Spain. He travels between towns with his flock, sleeps in fields and old churches, reads when he can. A simple life. A good enough one. And then the dream comes. Twice. The same dream each time. A child leads him to the Egyptian pyramids and a voice tells him, there is a treasure buried there, waiting for him specifically. He tries to shake it. He has a flock, a life, a merchant's daughter he is fond of in a town he visits every year. But the dream keeps coming back. He goes to a gypsy woman who reads fortunes. She takes the dream seriously enough that he listens. Then he wanders into a plaza and meets a strange old man sitting alone, who introduces himself as Melchizedek, the king of Salem. The old man tells him about personal legends, the thing each person was born to do, and says something when you want something. All the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. Santiago sells his sheep. He crosses into Africa. He is immediately robbed, left standing in a foreign city with nothing. No money, no plan, no way back. He finds a crystal merchant who needs help and takes the job. He spends almost a year there. Not the pyramids, not the dream, just the slow daily work of showing up. He watches the merchant, a man who has spent his whole life dreaming of making a pilgrimage to Mecca and finding reason after reason not to go. Something about that image settles into Santiago quietly and doesn't leave. He earns enough to buy a new flock and return to Spain. He chooses not to. He finds a caravan crossing the Sahara and joins it. On the caravan, he meets an Englishman, a scholar traveling to find a legendary alchemist who lives at an oasis deep in the desert. The Englishman has read every book on alchemy there is. Santiago, meanwhile, learns by watching the desert itself. The way the sand moves, the behavior of animals, the feeling in the air before things change. The two approach the same knowledge from completely opposite directions and teach each other something neither expected. When the caravan reaches the oasis of Al-Fayoum, tribal warfare in the surrounding desert forces them to stop and wait. It is here that Santiago meets Fatima. He falls in love with her immediately, not with an idea of her, but with who she actually is. Calm, clear. One day, walking alone at the edge of the desert, Santiago sees two hawks fighting in the sky, and has a sudden vivid vision. An army is going to attack the oasis. He brings the warning to the tribal chieftain. They prepare. The attack comes exactly as he saw it. Fayoum defends itself, and hundreds of lives are saved. Word of what Santiago saw reaches the alchemist. He appears that same night, a black-robed figure on a white horse, and takes Santiago out into the desert to test him. He passes. The alchemist decides to travel with him to the pyramids. But first, Santiago tells the alchemist he doesn't want to leave. That Fatima is enough, that the treasure can wait. The alchemist doesn't argue. The first year, happy. The second year, the treasure starts appearing in his thoughts again. The third year, he cannot stop thinking about it. The fourth year, the omens disappear entirely because he chose not to follow them. And Fatima, knowing he gave up his dream for her, begins to carry the weight of that. Santiago goes to Fatima and tells her he is leaving, but that he will return. She holds him and says she will wait. As a woman of the desert, she has always understood that this is how love sometimes goes. She has no doubt he will come back. He goes. They ride together through the most dangerous stretches of the Sahara, through territory torn apart by warring tribes. The alchemist says little. But what he says, Santiago carries. There is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure. Then they are captured. Arab soldiers stop them, search them, hold them. The alchemist makes a deal. He hands over all of Santiago's money and tells the soldiers that the boy is a powerful alchemist who will turn himself into the wind within 3 days. If he doesn't, they will both be killed. Santiago pulls the alchemist aside in a panic. He has no idea how to do this. The alchemist looks at him steadily. If a person is living out his personal legend, he knows everything he needs to know. For 3 days, Santiago sits with the desert. He watches the wind move across the sand. He watches the sun track slowly overhead. He stops trying to think his way through it, and starts trying to listen to something older and larger than his own plans. He speaks to the wind. He speaks to the sun. He asks them to help him. And at the height of the conversation, a tremendous sandstorm tears through the camp. Sand filling the sky, tents ripping loose, soldiers covering their eyes. And when it passes, Santiago is standing on the other side of the camp, completely unharmed. The soldiers release them both. The alchemist travels with Santiago as far as a Coptic monastery a few hours from the pyramids. There he demonstrates the philosopher's stone. Turns lead into gold, hands Santiago a portion of it, and then they part ways. Santiago walks the last stretch alone. He reaches the pyramids. He begins to dig. He finds nothing. Then two men appear, watch him, and decide he is worth robbing. They beat him, take everything he has. When they ask what he is digging for, Santiago tells them, a dream, a treasure. Buried here at the base of the pyramids. One of the men laughs, says he once had a stupid dream like that too. Treasure buried beneath a tree in the sacristy of an abandoned church somewhere in Spain. But he had more sense than to cross the world chasing it. Santiago goes very still. He knows that church. He slept there. Under that tree, that is exactly where the dream began. The story ends there. It is the possibility of having a dream come true that makes life interesting. If the universe wanted him to have it, if the omens were pointing him toward it from the very beginning, why didn't they just say that? Why Africa? Why the desert? Why the warring tribe? The years of loss? The 3 days of impossibility in front of soldiers who wanted him dead? Why does any of this have to be so hard? Because the boy who left with the sheep couldn't have received it. Not because he wasn't capable, because he hadn't been built into the person capable of holding it yet. He couldn't hear the language of the world. He hadn't learned to love something and leave it willingly. He had never stood in a situation with no logical exit and found something in himself larger than his own fear. He didn't know who he was under real pressure. The journey didn't take him to the treasure. The journey took him to himself. And that is what the treasure was always waiting for. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. That line only means something because Santiago walked to Egypt and back to understand it. There is a reason we instinctively distrust people who have all the answers, but none of the history behind them. Wisdom that hasn't been paid for in real experience stays on the surface of a person. It sounds right. It quotes correctly, but it hasn't gone deep enough to hold when real pressure arrives. Dostoevsky stood in front of a firing squad at 28, was reprieved at the last moment. Spent 4 years in a Siberian prison camp afterward. He came back and wrote the books that are still being read 2 centuries later. Not because prison gave him information, but because it made him someone who understood human nature from the inside, in a way no amount of reading could have produced. Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. He didn't theorize that. He lived into it. Unearned wisdom isn't neutral. It makes you confident in the wrong direction. You think you understand something you've only heard about. The gap between what you thought you knew and what you actually know becomes very expensive. The person who read about the desert and the person who crossed it are not the same. When the storm comes, only one of them knows what to do. When Alexander the Great died, his generals divided the empire among themselves. These weren't weak men. They had fought alongside someone who built one of the largest empires in history, through decades of genuine cost, failure, adaptation, loss, and the particular interior development that only comes from all of that. But they had received the outcome without the process that produced it. They had the territory. They didn't have the relationship with failure that had made Alexander capable of building it in the first place. They tore each other apart within a generation. Catastrophic decisions made with complete confidence. Power without the track record that would have earned that confidence. Everything Alexander built was in ruins within 50 years. The achievement outlasted the man. The people who inherited it, without earning it, could not hold it. This isn't ancient history. This is what happens when the gap between who you are and what you are carrying is too wide. The problem was never the empire. The problem was the gap. The journey closes the gap. So when you ask why me, when the path you are on feels longer than it was supposed to be, harder than you planned, nothing like the version you rehearsed in your head, here is what I actually believe. You are being built into someone capable of what you are actually after. Not the surface version of it, the real version. The one that holds. The one that doesn't turn to gold in your hands the moment you touch it. The difficulty isn't happening to you. It is happening inside you. Slowly, without asking your permission, building the infrastructure that the destination is going to demand. And your inner voice, the one you've gotten very good at talking yourself out of. You know what I mean? The pull that doesn't fully make rational sense yet. The thing you keep returning to even after you've decided to be practical about it. The direction that keeps appearing in your peripheral vision even when you are firmly looking somewhere else. That isn't confusion. That isn't immaturity. That is your personal legend, still knocking. You don't have to walk across the world, but you do have to stop pretending you can't hear it. The treasure is real. You are just not ready for it yet. Neither was he. That is exactly why the journey exists. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. And no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams. Appreciate you sticking around. Catch you in the next video.